Okay. What's good, podcast fam? It's your boy Jason Craig, aka the friendly neighborhood dreadhead, and I'm back with another interview. Today, I'm talking to another creator today, and let me make sure I do justice to this man. I gotta make sure that I do justice to this man. He is a former teacher with 22 years in the classroom. That's more. That's more. That's 22 years more years that I can do myself of teaching because I'm terrible at teaching. But he is also, he has inspiration from his teachings from his experiences as a teacher. He also is he's a self published author. Give it up for him. My man, I'm going to butcher your name wrong because I've been trying to get this right ever since it was sent to me. Steve, ooh, give me one second. Steve Bino.
You nailed it. There you
All
go.
right.
Perfect.
All right. Well, Mr. Steve, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, Jason. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Man, thank you for coming on the show.
No, it's
So,
great. I always love to talk comics, especially talk about Atrium. So I'm looking forward to it.
oh well, I'm not gonna lie to you. You found the right one because all I do is talk. So, but we're gonna try to get you out of here this time. I ain't gonna talk your head off.
It's all good.
Um, but so yeah, so let's just go ahead and get to it, man. What brings you on the show today? What are we promoting? I want you to let the people know out there, and I'm gonna put it in the chat so people will know what we're talking about.
So what we're talking about tonight is my indie comic book called Atrium. So I co-wrote it with Peter Van Horn, and it's out of Comics Asylum Publishing. So we're located in Toronto, Canada, and we kickstarted this book in November of 2023, and it's a five-issue miniseries, and it's about two paramedics, Naomi and Darnell, who are tasked with delivering a donor heart to a important but mysterious patient. En route, they and their security detail are attacked by a group of deadly assassins who just happen to be vampires.
Okay, vampires. Okay, that's nice. That's nice. Now, my question to you is, do you, since you're a horror, since you're writing a horror, like horror piece, is horror your go-to, or is it just something you dabbling in?
I can write anything. This is just what we started with. I grew up reading superhero books, Spider Man and the Hulk and Teen Titans and Superman, Batman, stuff like that. But the way that this one unfolded is we were looking to make like almost like a short film, an independent film, a few years back, and then we decided to like kind of flip the script and turn it into a comic book. And what better way to go into it with horror? Because horror is, and everybody loves horror, right? It transcends, audiences and cultures, and every culture has its own kind of like horror that's innate to itself. So you can't go wrong with vampires.
Okay, okay. So you see yourself as a comic connoisseur, if I might say.
Yeah, the eight full boxes downstairs kind of give me a little bit of cred, a little bit.
Okay, so tell me like what started you off on your creative journey?
To be honest with you, it was when I was a kid. I picked up some early, Spider-Man books, and I had two cousins, Peter and Spencer, who were huge comic book fans, and they bought stuff like Black Panther, Iron Man, Superman, Avengers, and I would kind of just when I'd go and visit, go into their room, go through their books, was totally lost in how amazing those stories were. And so when I had the chance to buy my own, I didn't buy theirs because they already had theirs, and they weren't big Spider-Man fans or Hulk fans, so that's where I gravitated. And
Okay, okay. So
from there, no, not to cut you off, but from there, I then wanted to draw them, even as a little kid. So instead of doing homework and stuff like that, I would go home and after school just draw my own adventures. And I guess I've never grown up.
okay, okay. So like I said, you caught the bug early when you were a kid, with the drawing. So when did you because as kids we all saw our favorite characters, we tried to draw them.
Yeah.
So when did you have the idea to draw like your own characters and make stories for your own characters? Like when did that come about?
It's probably about maybe 10 or so. Yeah, maybe 8, between 8 and 10. Came up with my own characters, and I had a really, really close family member. His name's Wayne, and we used to actually do our own crossovers where I'd have my characters and then he'd have his characters, and then we'd make comics with me drawing some of his characters and him drawing some of mine. And it was from there that we kind of bonded, and we made some stories together and whatnot, and it just kind of grew from there. And obviously I would make my own kind of Hulk adventures or Spider-Man adventures, but then I had some of my own creations that during high school, after finishing homework or whatever, or after a sports team, I'd come home, watch TV, and draw.
Okay, so and also you caught my eye saying that that you guys are based out of Canada. So is that where you're currently staying now?
Yeah, in Toronto.
All right. So born and raised, or
Born and raised. Yeah.
born and raised?
So the home of Drake.
No.
I
Oh,
I predate Drake
I
though.
don't know if you want to claim Drake right now.
He had a bit of a rough ride recently, but yeah,
Uh,
I can't
I
say the
just
Leafs and I can't say the Raptors because they're both taking licks. So yeah, I'll stick with Drake.
yeah, just it's just not a good year for rappers this year.
No, it has not been.
Well, 1,000 years, 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
Ooh,
So
mm,
man, like I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm scrolling through the art of the comic, and for me, it pokes out to me, like it sticks out to me just because um for me, I like a lot of people, they don't like black and white. Me, I love black and white. Shoot, I manga got me accepting black and white, so now indie comics I just read black. Like I got plenty of comics in the back that I still got to read. But I'm seeing, I'm like, one thing I can say, like I can tell a good artist, and like a good artist is, like the art has to fit the tone of your story, and I can tell, it's like it's horror, so horror vampires, so it's got to be a little gritty. So I can tell, like it's really like gritty art. And if it was colored, I could tell it would be like a muted color palette, because horror. So I really am admiring the art, because I don't know, like one thing, it's hard for people to do. I do not know why. I do not know why, because we feel like it's the easiest thing to draw on the body's eyes.
mm. Yes, yeah, it's one of the hardest, but we're really lucky. Our artist Lucas Falapi, he's out of Sao Paulo, Brazil. He did a fantastic job, rendering the characters, and one of the like amazing bits of feedback that we keep getting is whenever we're at conventions, and the book's in color, but I think what you're looking at is probably maybe the Kickstarter page. So we only have the black and white images on our Kickstarter page for the one we just launched a couple of days ago, but our
Right.
colors is fantastic. And Nikos Koutsas and Mike Torres, who work for Image Comics and Color Savage Dragon, they're our colorists, and they're the way that they work with with Lucas's pencils is fantastic. And the feedback we get from anyone who looks at the books is like, man, the art's really good. So, which is great because if there's any kind of problems with the writing, they take away any kind of like side eyes. But people like the writing as well too. So we're really lucky to have a great team. And you're right, Lucas sets the tone, and Nikos and Mike just finish it off perfectly.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I'm digging it. I definitely, when I can, because I have a problem with buying comics. I'm definitely probably going to pitch in. Um, so now my next question is like how I ask everybody that comes on this show. when it comes to your process, when it comes to your writing process and working with your drawers, like with your sketch artist, with your colorist, how difficult is that process, or how easy does how easy does that process flow?
It really depends. Sometimes it works and meshes really easily, and sometimes it doesn't. We're really lucky, Peter and I, that Lucas is almost like a sponge as well as a co-writer. So we'll put stuff down on the page, and the way that I write and the way that Peter writes is that, and I'm really visual because I draw as well too, is that every page we kind of laid out panel by panel and what dialogue goes in each panel. And we have a fair level of description, but not a lot. We kind of leave it open to the artist. And what we discovered when we were working with Lucas is he's able to take what we have on the page and just add to it. And there were points where like we may have had a certain amount of panels laid out and we're expecting the story to kind of be told from a different angle or a certain angle or have a certain amount of panels. And he's like, you know what? I think I can do this in like 6 panels instead of 4. Or maybe if we add another page, this will work better. Or I can do it in fewer panels. And he was fantastic. And the feedback that we would, whenever we'd get like the roughs, we would just say, okay, you might want to tweak this, or you might change this, or some of the things that he changed, which we didn't even have in the script. We were like, you nailed it. Just go with it. Like, don't even bother changing anything. So it's kind of like one of those things where, and I know it's difficult for certain writers. We're pretty easy with letting go and letting the artist do their thing. If the artist is completely missing the boat in terms of what we want on the page, then obviously we'll say something, we'll have a discussion and whatnot. But the one thing I didn't want to do is restrict Lucas to second guess whatever he was doing whenever he was putting pen to paper.
Okay, seems like seems like you got a process which is real good, because organization, especially when you're working with a team, is very key
Yeah.
with making a project. So my next question to you is, um for people that are starting out, because I see that you're self-published and whatnot, and you're starting to grow your company and whatnot. What would you give advice to people out there who's trying to start, self-publish themselves, or start up their own company? Like, what advice can you give to the people out there?
It totally depends because if you're just a writer, then I would just say write. If you're an artist, I would say draw every day. But for the most part, make sure that your story is ironclad and airtight so that you know where you're going with it. Because if you're not quite sure where you're going with it, then that's going to determine the cost that you're going to have to entail. So if you're doing, say, a graphic novel, there's a price point that comes with that, right? Depending on how many pages you have, how many teammates that you have, what their rates are. So that's something that you have to consider. But for the most part, make sure that you have your craft down and then just keep doing it every day. Make sure that you are working on your story points. You got the beats laid out. You work on your dialogue. If you're writing, read your dialogue out loud, stuff like that. Make sure that you're not overcrowding your pages. And if you're an artist, look at things like Instagram, read a lot of comic books. I would say the same thing for if you're a writer as well too. Make sure that you know the like how a story is constructed because the fans have seen think of everything that fans have seen and throughout the history of comic books and pop culture and stories. And yours is just a tiny puzzle piece to that entire mosaic. So you got to be able to, and I'm not saying that you have to be Jim Lee or Stan Lee or one of the giants. We all have our places, but you still have to have a product that where you put it down next to the other greats that are out there or the people who are like you self-publishing. They are not going to look at and go, oh, that's missing or oh, that's missing. You don't want anything to take them out of the story.
Okay. Well, you heard it here, folks. Hey, keep practicing, keep writing, do your research. Now, now you were like you did teaching for like 20 plus years. So what made you transition from teaching to writing for? I'm assuming you write full time. Like
What was it? You know what? I have always been in love with comics and always been in love with writing. Um, Even when I was teaching, once I would, finish marking or in my summers, I would always draw a little bit or write a little bit or be plotting or planning what I wanted to create as a story. And actually, while I was teaching, I with my partner Vaughn, who is the designer on Comics Asylum as well as for Atrium, the miniseries, we created something called Comics Asylum. And so what we did was we had a digital interactive magazine that you would read on the iPad, and we started in like 2014. So I created that, and that was my way after being in a studio and working on Hasbro toys and doing some background work in DC Comics and Image Comics in a studio here in Toronto. I still kept my foot in the world of comics. So we would then interview artists. I then turned and started to do reviews for things like The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, and then through Comics Asylum was able to interview some of the stars and even some of the showrunners. And doing all of those interviews, believe it or not, gave me little nuggets on how to do the craft. So what every time I speak to somebody is to get a little bit of information of like, oh, that's how you do it, because unless you're going to the Kubert school, going to there's no real place to learn how to do comics, right? It's like you
right,
read, you read, you see other stuff, and you then try to emulate and you make your own. And then if you're good enough and you're lucky enough and you ever can work for a company, whether independent or one of the big two or three, we all kind of start in the same place, right? And
right.
so Comics Asylum allowed me to kind of learn the business as well as working in that studio. But I also did it while I was teaching. And then eventually, I guess it was just pre-pandemic, we were like, you know what? Let's try this. Let's see if we can finally get Atrium up and running. And we were just lucky enough that we had the right team at the right time, and things like Kickstarter were around where you could actually crowdfund your book if you could not get a publisher to give you a chance.
Okay, okay. So I want to get back to the Kickstarter that you're working on now. What would you say? What inspired you for this project? Like like what inspirations you have? Like what drove you to write it? Do you have any inspirations in like current media that
Great question. It was, you know what? It started when I was a kid. I've always wanted to make my own comics. In a perfect world, I would have drawn Spider Man and been doing it, from the time I was, 17, 18. But just didn't play out that way. Went to teachers college, but I remained a fan. And then you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, that path's not for me, but it doesn't mean that I can't still swim in that water, right? So while Spider-Man or working at Marvel may not have been something that was a possibility at that time, I was like, you know what? Let me just make my own stuff. And luckily, things like KDP and self-publishing were options for people who wanted to do their own novels. And I started doing my own novels, and then after that, I was like, well, let's do our own comics. And so with the guys that I had worked with at the studio here in Toronto, we kind of cobbled together an idea, and then it was just looking for an artist, right? And we initially had an artist, a good friend of ours, but it just didn't work out. Like superb and talent, but it just didn't mesh. They had a different vision for the project, and so we decided to part ways. And we were lucky enough to find Lucas, and it just all came together. And the irony of the situation is that Atrium as a initial concept was really strong. But then when the artist left, we decided to retool it slightly. And we think that we've actually strengthened what we were working on in the beginning.
okay, okay. Well, we getting towards the end because I know I try to keep you here forever, but now we to the fun part of the interview where I get to ask just fun questions. Now, my first question to you is Marvel or DC?
I'm a Marvel guy.
You're a Marvel.
There's some DC characters I love. I love me some Teen Titans when I was a kid. The Flash, Superman's probably my guy on that side. But actually, what? It's more Nightwing, to be honest with you. If I had to really pick
Yeah.
Nightwing and Cyborg, but I'm a Marvel guy. Spider Man all the way.
All right, I can get with that. I rocks with Spider Man. Spider Man was, is one of my favorites. Um, so now now we have something here that we like to call, you know, the Mount Rushmore. Choose your Mount Rushmore. I
Okay.
normally have a wheel, but the wheel is not cooperating with me, so I'm gonna give you. So since you're a fan of comics, I'm going to ask you when it comes to writers slash writer slash artist, whichever one you want to do. Who would be your Mount Rushmore?
Okay. Wow, that's a tough question. Hmm. Okay. So for me personally, growing up, the people that I loved to read, Roger Stern. He wrote Spider Man in the early to mid '80s. Had some great stories. Co-created Hobgoblin with John Romita Jr. Loved his run. John Byrne. He's one of the preeminent writers as well as artists. Love his stuff. Was a huge Alpha Flight fan. Another it was a Canadian team that dabbled with the X-Men back in the day. So Byrne was great. Come to think of it, a lot of my collection has a lot of Byrne in it. To be honest with you, so that's those two, and you're just talking writers, right?
Yeah, writers.
Yeah.
Like
So
we'll just keep it
Byrne,
simple with writers.
yeah. So Byrne, probably Simonson, who did a fantastic run on Thor, and then probably Peter David, who did
Okay.
I think he drew not drew, he wrote like 100 issues of Hulk, and he kind of reworked Hulk's origin to make it where it's the split personalities and delving into Banner's troubled past with his father. So yeah, so those four probably. So yeah, can't argue with those
Okay.
four.
All right. Now my next question to you is: okay, let's say this is a perfect ideal future. What is the end goal for you?
To have more Atrium and to spread the word on Atrium and have lots of fans worldwide know about it. It's a 5 issue miniseries, and our Kickstarter, which is running now, basically is for issues 4 and 5 because we kickstarted 1, 2, and 3 late last year, and then we did 2 and 3 in the spring. So there's a whole world that we haven't really explored. We're just on the tip of the iceberg with Adrian's story right now, and I would love for down the line it to be a film, something like Walking Dead, where we've got like 100 issues and people know all about what goes on in that world, because it's not everything that you might expect. We kind of take some of the vampire tropes and kind of twist it a little bit, and we got like some neat lore that we're working on. It's just a matter of having more issues to tell the full story.
All right. Now, also, if this was to be adapted, into animation, like animated live action, who would you want to direct it?
Ooh, that's an awesome question. You know what? Guillermo del Toro.
Okay. Okay. Well, hey, you heard that, Guillermo? You got hey money, money.
Yep.
I know you. I don't. Hold on. Actually, I want to see. I don't got. Wait, no. Actually, I got something. Hey, hear that? That's us not. That's us ringing your doorbell. There's money right there for you. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But hey, man. I wish I could talk to you longer, but I know that you got other things to do.
I got a couple
So
minutes. I got a few minutes. Yeah. So
you
if
got a
you want
few
to ask me
minutes.
another
Okay.
question,
Hold on, let's see
yeah,
what I could cook up.
yeah, hit me up. Hit me
Okay.
up.
Oh, I got something for you. I got something for you. Since you're a Marvel fan,
Uh huh.
I want to hear your opinions of the MCU.
Hmm. Okay. Well, to be honest with you, I loved the MCU. I think that 10-year run was unparalleled. The thing that they think they got right better than anyone else was casting. Like when you
Okay.
look at some of the people that they cast, Cap was amazing, Iron Man was amazing, Nick Fury was amazing. Like they nailed it when it came to casting, whether you were an A-list character or a C-list character. Falcon was great. Um, Black Panther was great. Chadwick was, R.I.P. God rest his soul. He was amazing, and they really nailed that. And they took some of the stories that were seminal throughout the comic books and translated them well. I think where they're at now is that they they're in a point where they're having a reset, and whereas comics don't have to worry about the next Iron Man or the next Spider-Man or the next Captain America, these actors are aging out, right?
Right.
And they're replacing them. So there's that transition where you've got a decade of worldwide audience falling in love with these characters and the people that were those characters, right? Look at Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman's trying to run away from Wolverine, but he can't,
He don't
right?
be playing until he's 90.
He's gonna be old man Logan till he's like. You're exactly correct. Why? Because people love him. So as long as he can do it, people are gonna show up and see it. So for me, I'm going to miss Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. There's a part of me where I'm kind of a little bit sad that Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man will never meet Reed Richards, right? And
Right.
have them go back and forth with a battle of the brains, right? It's stuff like that where I'm kind of like it's a little bit bittersweet with the MCU, but you cannot argue some of those films. Like Winter Soldier was great. The first
Oh,
Iron Man.
oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah, it's my favorite too, personally. Winter Soldier, hands down, is in my opinion the best MCU movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So now, my question to you is because I'm more of a DC fan, but I do read Marvel comics.
right.
Uh, Out of all the stories that that Marvel has, what would you like to see adapted, or have they already adapted something that you've been wanting to see for a while?
It's a great question. I'm a Hulk fan, so I'd like to see some good Hulk.
Oh,
Right?
you
Like
going?
I'd like to see a Hulk, like a really good Hulk story. They don't have to do World War Hulk, right? But just give us something with him in it. Um, but you know what I would actually really like, and I know they did the series, and I know that Gunn is working on redoing the DCEU, but I would love to see a proper Teen Titans like on the big screen. I would love to see that.
Well, let's see if they can get Superman right first. Then we can see if they can do other characters. Like I said, I love James Gunn, but DC, they've ever since Kevin Sujihara and Zack Snyder, they got they got some work to do. I mean, the Suicide Squad was good. The Suicide Squad, not 2017. We don't talk about that. Oh, but yeah, man. For me, I'm gonna just say this. Just please do one of just please get the Dark Phoenix right. Like,
Oh, for the X Men,
yeah.
it's
I
so hard.
look
That's
look
hard.
I
Like I agree
look.
with you. Yeah.
They say the third time's the charm. I pray that's the case. I
Do
just
we need to see a third though? Like there are other X Men stories to tell. I know they're going to go there. We'll see what
yeah,
happens after they kind of like reboot everything.
yeah, man. Or like
Secret Wars.
or if you can't get that right, which you probably never gonna get right, give me X-Men. God loves, man kills. That's one of my favorites as well.
Ooh, that is a proper graphic novel. That
Yeah, that.
all right, that's a deep cut. Yeah, can't go wrong
Yeah,
with that one.
yeah. I love me some X-Men. But
So
hopefully
so
Marvel can.
what did you think of X Men '97?
Oh, I love the X Men '97. For one, at first I like, oh, they probably going to Disneyfy it, and then as I was watching, like, oh, by episode 5, like, oh, This is really violent.
The reason why I loved X Men '97 because I'm an X Men fan, but I didn't really watch the cartoon of the '90s because I was a little bit
Right.
older and I was kind of aging out of it. And when I saw Cyclops jump out of the Blackbird and basically go Dragon Ball on that landing, I was like,
Oh
"You
yeah.
got me! You got me!"
Oh man, look. For years, I've been saying, look, I'm nostalgic for the X Men films. I'm nostalgic for the Men was back 2000, but they never really did Scott Summers
No,
his due because Scott's the OG. Scott's the leader. Scott is one of the best X Men, but it was all everybody was on Wolverine's dick, which that's cool. Wolverine
yeah,
was cool, but Scott's the man, and I'm glad that '97 actually showed that he was the man and how much of a cuck that or yeah that I
but
I've read.
I agree with you because like the fact that X Men '97 downplayed Logan, and so he was there, he had his moments, but like
Me personally, I've people wonder why, but like to me, Gambit is one of my favorite X Men, and like I've just been eating as a Gambit fan this year because he was great in '97, very tragic.
mhm.
Um, was not expecting that. He was Shannon Tatum was great as Gambit in Deadpool Wolverine. I pray he gets his own movie.
Yeah,
He been wanting that movie for years.
yeah, Ryan Reynolds did a service to a lot of those actors. They got their swan song and a little bit of retribution. It was great.
Yeah, but hey, man, I've had a blast talking to you.
Absolutely, so have I.
Yeah,
Great.
so before we leave, I put the Kickstarter in the chat, but I want you to tell the people where they can find you at personally. If you got any social medias or website, let the people know. They need to know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you can find me personally at Steve Bino Art. So SteveBynoeArt. That's on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter or X and Threads. And you can find Comics Asylum at comicsasylum.com. We have a YouTube channel as well too. And you can also find us on Instagram, Comics Asylum, as well as our website, www.comicsasylum.com. So all things Atrium are there. The campaign started on Monday. We've already reached our funding goal, and we would love to like 3x that if possible, because then we can give some great stretch goals to our backers. Our backers are the reason why Atrium exists. They have been fantastic, and we just can't wait to get the conclusion of the saga into everyone's hands. So please, if you're into Kickstarters, we'd love your support.
Y'all heard that right here. It's up now. Go back them, and if not, I'm gonna be at your door, and I'm gonna make you watch Ang Lee's Hulk on repeat 5 times over with no breaks. But hey, y'all know where to find me at. All the social media platforms, Brang Da Popcorn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm gonna call it Twitter. It's just gonna be Twitter to me
It's
forever.
still Twitter to me. I'm the same.
I don't fuck you, Elon Musk. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Go ahead, check out TikTok. I need to be more active on the TikTok. I know editing takes a while, y'all.
Yeah,
Just bear with me. But hey, Steve, it was so fun talking
it
with you
was a pleasure.
tonight.
Loved it.
Well, y'all came to an end, but just remember when you always come to these interviews and reviews, just remember to always bring the popcorn. All right, y'all. We are out of here. Peace.
Raider.